Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to a new community chat. Today, we're going to be talking about Dementia Conversations. And we have Jody Ariel here with us. She's from the Alzheimer's Association, and she has a lot of information to give us. And as I was saying before the recording, she's great. Her team is great, and I never get tired of being with them because we always learn a lot. And this is a hot topic. I know a lot of people, especially as we grow older, we might have a family member who's starting to suffer from dementia, or they already have dementia. It's sad, but it's the reality. And sometimes we don't know how to approach it because the person tries to hide it, because they don't feel comfortable. We don't feel comfortable talking to them about this. It's a very sensitive topic. So Dementia Conversations today is gonna give us an idea on how to approach the topic with family members, and many more tips that Jody is ready to share with us, correct?
Correct. Thank you so much, Sandra, for having me today and having the Alzheimer's Association present again. Like you said, this is a very difficult sometimes situation where families put off having these conversations. So, that's what we do at the association. We're here to help. We're a free resource. So that's why we love partnering with you and the hospital. This tends to advance itself. It's got its own, its own logic. Always a challenge.
And Jody, I just want to remember everybody who's joining us now that we are open for Q&A at any given point. So please ask your questions, write your comments. The more interactive, the better it is for all of us. It makes it more fun. So use the chat box, the Q&A box. Just send us all of your questions. I'm going to read them to Jody. And that's the dynamic that we're going to be doing today in this community chat and every community chat. So go ahead, Jody, did you tell us a little bit about yourself? I mean, I just didn't ask because I know you already, but there might be people here today that don't know you.
Okay.
So do you want to talk about you a little bit, the work that you do, and talk about Alzheimer's Association?
Yes, I'd love to. So my role with the Alzheimer's Association is I'm an employee. Some of our presentations, again, this advances itself if I haven't gone too fast. Many of our presentations already with you have been with volunteers. So we have a lot of volunteers who present. I am an employee, and I've been with the association almost 7 years. I started over 20 years ago as a support group facilitator. In Westchester, I started a support group for caregivers of people with dementia. So I've been affiliated for a long time with the Alzheimer's Association, and my role is community engagement. So a lot of what I do is education and outreach. And we know so many times people will say, I wish we had called you 2 years ago. I wish we knew what you did. We wish we knew that you were a free resource and all of the great things that we do for families for free. And so that's really, what brings us out to the community. We have a couple of very nice grants that help support us and just getting the word out, because we know this is a very difficult disease and it's very unlike others, where in most other cases, people run to the doctor when they have a situation. But when somebody's suffering from memory loss, people don't run to the doctor. They don't necessarily run to a neurologist and find out what's happening. It's something that people tend to wait and tend to kind of don't want anyone to know about. So this program is particularly about that, starting these conversations. So there's yeah, go ahead.
And there are two things that you just said that got my attention. One, volunteers. So maybe we can leave that towards the end. If somebody wants to become a volunteer, what we need to do. And another one, you just said it loosely there, but you said this is a free program. So I think that's very, very important that families know that they can count on the Alzheimer's Association and it's not going to cost them a penny. And for example, we already have a comment here, and Stacy's saying, my aunt moved in with my family in January. She moved from Nevada to New York. We didn't know she had dementia when she moved, partly because she was in denial and still is. Does the association have people who talk to the individual who has dementia? And I think that That is a very good introduction to
Yes.
what we're going to be talking today, isn't it?
Yes, that is a perfect introduction. And I think one of the greatest things that we do at the Alzheimer's Association is we have a 1-800 number. So people can call and speak to a live person 24 hours a day about anything. If they're caregiving, then they can reach out and speak with a licensed master's level social worker and get great advice on different situations. Now, locally, we also have master's level social workers. In fact, Teresa Aguilera has presented here before. She's bilingual, so she also provides care consultations in Spanish. And that's the language, care consultation. And I'll put that in the chat later, but that's the terms that we use. So if somebody wants to schedule a meeting with her, again, we never charge for anything. Ever. We don't even ask. It's not what we do. So we provide all of these services because we know that it's so difficult. So having someone available to give advice and also to connect with other resources within the community, because we know that we don't do it all, but we know of others who can help support. So during the presentation, I'll mention some of those things that we do at the association, but also how we can connect with local resources and get assistance to families. And with our care consultations, it's individual. We know if you've seen one case of Alzheimer's, you've seen one case of Alzheimer's. So everybody's family dynamics is unique. Everyone's presents differently with the disease. So we really try to support families individually so that they can get a customized plan on how to proceed. And again, that plan does change sometimes, most likely.
Because unfortunately, this is also a chronic progressive disease, right? It can get worse as we go, unfortunately. Is that correct?
Yes. Once somebody has Alzheimer's, they have Alzheimer's and they will progress through the different stages. So, we're here to support them as their loved one changes through this process.
Okay.
All right.
The podium is yours.
All right. And again, feel free to interrupt if you see a question. I'm happy to pause. I don't mind being interrupted. That's fine with me. Or we can hold all questions till the end, however you choose to do it. Okay. So I'm going to move to our first slide here. And it pretty much breaks down the 3 different pieces we're going to talk about today. And we know at the association that some of the most difficult conversations are going to the doctor, just getting that person to the doctor initially. Like I said, there's a reluctancy with this type of illness where if somebody's having a problem with their memory, they might not tell anybody. They may hope that nobody's noticed. So just getting to the doctor and getting that first step into the door to talk to the doctor is one thing that we're going to discuss. Deciding when it's necessary to stop driving. Like I mentioned, I was a support group facilitator for caregivers, and this is very, very difficult to take those keys away and to have their loved ones stop driving. So we'll talk about that. And again, for some reason, this advances on its own. And then the third piece is making legal and financial plans to cover for future needs. So that is a super important topic for everyone. No matter whether there's memory loss or not. So that component is something that is very critical for all of us as we age and even as younger people, just to plan for the future. All right. So again, we're going to be talking about breaking the ice, about having some of those difficult conversations, and to plan ahead. One of our board members has this saying, she's an elder law attorney, and she has a saying, planners win. And it's so true. Planning for our future is so important in so many ways. So we'll talk about that. You'll get to hear embedded clips of people who have gone through this themselves, caregivers. And again, we're going to connect you to helpful resources. That's one of the things that we do at the Alzheimer's Association, is not only do we provide care and support, but we try to connect others to different resources within the community. Here you're going to see some of the thoughts that people have as they're struggling with this different scenario. Sometimes families will say, or the individual will say, I don't really want to burden my children. They have their own families. They have their own problems. I don't want to burden them with this. Or they'll maybe be in denial and say, I'm fine. I'm getting a little bit older and I'm fine. There's nothing wrong. And then some people will say, just wait till you're my age. Things are a little harder than they used to be. Oh, again, sorry. Then on the flip side, on the left, sometimes I go backwards. On the left side, it says, my sister lives close by and she can help. So maybe what the adult children assume that the person who lives closest is taking care of everything. And sometimes people will say, I don't want to offend, my mom or my dad. I don't want to offend them and bring this up. And sometimes we'll say, you know what? We've seen a few changes, but let's wait. We're not really sure if there's a problem. So this is a huge hurdle. It's actually a very huge hurdle with this type of illness, where people really kind of don't want to have these conversations and feel that maybe if they wait, it'll just go away. So we have a little score here, and it talks about sooner is better than later. So you really don't want to wait for a crisis. And unfortunately, when our phones ring, it's a lot of times when people are in crisis. So someone may fall and break their hip and be in rehab, and the hospital may say, you know what, this person isn't safe to go home. Or sometimes something happens to the person that's living with that individual, and they're not able to be there anymore. And then all of a sudden there's a crisis. We hear this a lot. So it's always good to start planning in advance and not wait for a crisis. And using a finesse with developing that plan. It doesn't have to be concrete in stone. In fact, there could be different scenarios. Maybe we'll do this, maybe we'll do that. And it doesn't have to be done in one day. So it's just kind of like finessing a plan that's going to make sense for everyone involved, even the family members. It's a balance of what's good for the individual with memory loss and what's good for, is it realistic? Can we actually, work with this plan? Taking notes about the changes you see. It's so great to keep a log. We talk about this so many times. Keep that log of what's going on with that individual. Just a regular pad of paper works. It doesn't have to be fancy Word document. Just jot down some notes that you're seeing. You can get one at the dollar store and just write a note, keep a log of what is going on and maybe what others are seeing as well. Successful conversations don't always happen. Sometimes they're unsuccessful. So practicing in advance can be very helpful. Being prepared, just like anything else in life, the more prepared we are, the more successful we may be. And then to plan the conversation when we're both relaxed and comfortable. Sometimes, families will say, well, we're going to see each other on Thanksgiving. Maybe we'll have that talk then. That's probably a really poor plan, because Thanksgiving is not the time to bring up this kind of topic. You want to do it at a quiet time. Sometimes we know individuals with memory loss have better times of the day than others. So if somebody's more of a morning person, then maybe plan that conversation in the morning. Or if maybe that person's an afternoon person, do it in the afternoon. So, thinking thoughtfully about who's going to be involved in the conversation and where we're going to be. And hopefully it's a nice private location and not in their favorite restaurant, because that restaurant won't be their favorite anymore. Conversations about going to the doctor. So I can't even tell you, I couldn't even imagine how many times I've heard from family members that their loved one just refuses to go to the doctor, doesn't want to bring it up to the doctor, absolutely refuses to have that conversation. One of the greatest things that Medicare offers is a cognitive assessment with the well visit, that annual well visit. So when going to the primary care physician, you can ask or even request ahead of time. It might be better to not wait until you're in the room. Maybe call ahead and say, while we come in for our well visit, we'd like to get that cognitive assessment done. So it's kind of a subtle way to ease into the conversation. The individual may be very fearful, doesn't want to hear that news, might be very angry with their family member for even bringing this up. I'm fine, don't worry about me. And just completely concerned about their future care. The stigma with Alzheimer's, nobody really wants to hear that word or that term. And that can really be a true barrier for getting into that doctor's office.
And Jody, we have a question here. Will
Sure.
there be assistance for my mom who lives with me over 2 years, but who's a resident in Florida?
So she lives.
So she's been here for 2 years, right?
Okay.
But she's legally a Florida resident.
So in that case, I see my coworker Diane on the screen. You came in as a panelist, Diane. She lives in Florida, or she's a resident of Florida. I don't think that there would be a problem.
Because
if
she's
somebody
currently here, you know.
Yeah, she's currently here, that she's
daughter.
living here. Yeah, I mean,
She's living with her daughter here, but you know, her I would think her legal residence or her, I guess her driver's license is still, you know, it still says Florida. That's not matter.
It doesn't matter as far as the Alzheimer's Association is concerned, and as far as her medical care is concerned. I'm assuming she's over 65 and on Medicare, so that doesn't.
Yeah, but you know what? Since she's a legal resident in Florida, I wonder if the Medicare and all of that is from Florida, not from New York. And she's 87.
Yeah, but Medicare is a federal program. I don't know that it wouldn't.
Well, being from New Jersey, I know that Medicare is for the state. So for example, if you want to go to New York for services with a New Jersey Medicare, it wouldn't be accepted.
Okay. Well, we do have lists, so we can certainly assist with that. We have we just had a conference, and at our conference, I was the moderator for Medicare, Medicaid, and long-term care insurance, and I learned a lot about that. But I don't know about the state. You know, we didn't get into that topic, but we do have lists of referrals, and we can provide some guidance on how to do that when it comes to the legal piece, which is like the third piece. So right now we're talking about going to the doctor, we're going to talk about driving, and then we talk about legal. That's when it really makes a difference. So if somebody has a power of attorney from Florida, that may not work here in New York. So really getting to an elder law attorney and making sure that those legal matters are in order, that is important. And certainly going and making sure that the Medicare, here we go again, the Medicare is, you know, I would assume she's been to the doctor in the last couple of years, but if not, maybe call the doctor's office or make sure to get that sorted out, because you don't want to wait to an emergency, certainly to find out that the insurance isn't where it needs to be. So, yeah.
Yeah, and she's also saying, you know, the hardest part for me is leaving her alone during the day. Do they offer any services to get her out, take her out of the house to keep her busy? Okay, so
what we offer, we do have a respite grant, and what we can refer to other, I believe the Rockland Office for the Aging also has a respite grant. So what happens is when you meet with our care consultant, they will help in getting that person access to a respite grant, which can help push in maybe a home health aide during the day or adult day program. Unfortunately, it's $1,000 a year, which, as you can imagine, doesn't really go that far, but it's a good introduction. You know, if somebody's just thinking about it and considering it, we know many times someone will do it, and you know, getting a home health aide in for a couple hours during the week can help. But we also help with maybe navigating into a senior center or into a adult day program. It depends on the person's, you know, somebody in the early stages, they might really benefit from being in a senior center. You know, but if somebody's more in the middle stages, they might want to be in an adult day program. So perhaps we can, and that's, again, one of the, like I said, one of the greatest things we do is we meet with families for free, and we can find out where that person lives, what's available to them locally. A lot of times the places will provide transportation, they'll come pick up, and that's, again, if you use our respite grant, it's a good trial.
Okay.
So you're not really investing a lot of money in something that you don't know if it's going to work or not. And I know sometimes people have said that, there are going to be volunteers at these centers. It depends. If somebody's in the earlier stage, maybe they don't really feel comfortable with this idea, and they say, you know what, they need some extra help down there. Would you mind volunteering there? And they'll kind of drop them off that way. And then they kind of feel like they can volunteer, because all the senior centers need volunteers, or they'll help with some sort of project. So that way they're not feeling like they're, being put in a situation that they're not comfortable. And again, everything can be temporary, it's kind of sometimes a trial and error. So, and again, that's what our social workers do. They kind of work with families, they get to know more information, and they, try to help them, navigate. And even, it depends on somebody's financial situations, but there's also a Medicaid program where they will pay for anyone other than the spouse. So it can't be the spouse, but anyone else can come in and provide care through that CDPAP program. So there's a lot of different things that we know about and can help navigate with. So I would really encourage you to give out our phone number and kind of connect with us so that we can have those conversations and really try to come up with some.
I would like to write down the phone number here in the chat. Do you know it?
Oh, yes. 1-800 272 3900. Now, that phone number is going to ring into Chicago, because we want people to reach a live person. And if you try to reach me, I'm usually on the presentation or driving in my car to a location. So you can always email me, but I can connect you with someone too. But if you call that 1-800 number, you'll get connected with them. And then the term you want to ask for is, you want to schedule an in-person care consultation with a local staff member. And then they will get a call within 48 hours from our local staff. So that's, and then our meetings can be done in person. They can be done on Zoom. That's the silver lining of COVID, right? We've entered this whole virtual world that we never knew existed, or I didn't anyway. And so we can also do it by phone too. So there's a lot of different ways we connect. And I think it's nice when we do Zoom, because sometimes other family members will come in to the meeting so that everybody's on the same page. Because I know with family dynamics, sometimes, the caregiver may see one thing, and then the adult children are all kind of seeing different things. So that's another thing that
and Stacy is sharing a similar comment as Donna. She has her aunt all day alone with the dog. Looks like the four of you can get together and both mom and aunt can meet and maybe be friends. That would be great. If we can
never know.
These community chats, I'll be the happiest person, let me tell you.
Right. That would be a wonderful result of today's meeting. One of the things that, we also do that is really fabulous is our support groups. So that's, if anyone listening today is a caregiver, I would highly encourage them to reach out to us or email me. I can tell you when our support groups meet. I'm not, unaccessible. I'm happy to help. That's my job. So, if anyone wants to connect with a support group, we have them still via Zoom. I don't believe we have any in Rockland yet, but maybe you're not in Rockland, maybe you're somewhere else. Some of them are looking to go in person again, but we'll always have Zoom. I don't think this Zoom world is going by.
And no matter where you are, if it's in Zoom, you're just a key away now.
Yes. And, being a caregiver, we know how hard it is sometimes to leave our loved ones. So that's even better, because we don't really have to leave the house to go to a meeting. So that can be wonderful too. So, like I said, please reach out if you want to join a support group. And it is challenging leaving someone home when we're still working and we have bills to pay, and, life isn't easy. We have other
Not feeling
obligations.
safe, especially not feeling safe. Like
Yes.
knowing what can happen at home, with your loved one.
Right. Maybe they go to use the stove and forget to turn it off. It's there's a lot of concerns and safety concerns. We know 7 out of 10 people will wander with Alzheimer's. They may go for a walk and get disoriented and forget how to get home. And we help with getting those identification bracelets. And there's a thing called Project Lifesaver that's available here. I just did a training with the Clarkstown Police yesterday on Project Lifesaver. So there's so many things. It's like a huge list, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming. That's, I guess, what the key takeaway is. It is overwhelming, but we do this all day, every day. This is what our job is. So we're here to help. We want people to call us. That's my job, is to get the phones to ring. We want people to utilize our services. Again, we don't want someone to say, I wish I called you 2 years ago, and we really want people to reach out and plan in advance. And it's never too soon to connect with us.
Is Alzheimer's Association only in New York, or is it in other states?
So we are nationwide. So if, like I heard Florida mentioned, we can connect with the local chapter there. There's different chapters throughout the country. Our chapter is the Hudson Valley. So we cover the 7 counties of this local Hudson Valley. And then, we're part of the New York State region, which is made up of many different chapters throughout the state. So we're all trained under the same umbrella. We're very fortunate at our chapter, where we are the recipient of 2 very generous New York State Department of Health grants. So we do provide a lot of extra services. The respite program is specific to our chapter that I had mentioned. We have art therapy and music therapy and socials, memory cafes. There's so much that we can do and try to connect people, and keep social, because we know that, it can be a very isolating situation when someone, comes down with a type of dementia like Alzheimer's.
A great conversation. Please go back to your slides.
All right. I can finally advance this. I'll tell you, this PowerPoint for some reason is just moving along on its own. Okay, and now we're going to hear a clip from a caregiver.
I think you have to be honest. I think that's the important thing with it. To get a loved one to the doctor, I think you just need to be candid and honest of what are you trying to do. We're trying to understand what we're up against. It's just so important to do that, because you can't battle something that you don't know what you're battling. Again, it may not have been Alzheimer's. It could have been depression. It could have been so many other things. And guess what? There's other things you can do to take care of those issues as well. But that's what you need to be able to do. You can't ignore something. It's not going to go away.
So that's a really important point, because just because somebody is suffering from memory loss, that doesn't necessarily mean they have Alzheimer's, and it doesn't necessarily mean they have dementia even. There are other things that can cause dementia-like symptoms that are reversible. Someone may be depressed, like she mentioned. Somebody might have a thyroid problem. Somebody might have a vitamin deficiency. Somebody may have had a stroke. Somebody may have fluid on their brain. So getting to that doctor could possibly be good news, because it's actually a medication that somebody's on that's causing them to be forgetful. Or maybe it's 2 medications that are combining and causing that memory loss. So getting to that doctor, or maybe somebody has hearing impaired, maybe somebody's hearing, and it's not that they're not remembering, it's that they never heard what was being said. So there's a real advantage in that sense to try to get to the doctor. Tips to get to that conversation going: use words that are most comfortable with the person. Think about, very thoughtfully of what you're going to say, and maybe this conversation doesn't take place in 1 hour. Maybe it takes place over a course of a week or 2 weeks, but just kind of strategize and kind of assess as the conversation is going along. Maybe we need to stop. Suggest Medicare's free annual well visit. I had already mentioned that. That's a really, really great free service. It's billable to the physician, and a really good physician should know about it, should be doing it anyway. But that's something that we really encourage people to ask for. And again, not to ask maybe while you're in the office, but maybe kind of call in advance and ask that it be done, because that's a great way to get an assessment without going to a neurologist. It's really like a nice subtle introduction to getting that conversation going with a doctor. Sometimes we know pairing the doctor's appointment with an enjoyable outing helps get the person there. Again, many times people will say, my wife refuses to go, or my husband refuses, I can't get him, or I can't get my mom to the doctor. Maybe if you pair it with, the doctor's right next to our favorite diner. Let's go to the doctor, and then we're going to go get our favorite meal or something of that effect. To try or we'll get we'll go visit so-and-so while we're out. That would be a great way to kind of do it. Invite family members to communicate concerns, questions to the doctor, kind of getting everybody else's take on what's happening. It's not just the person living with the individual. Others may be seeing things, family, friends, neighbors. So it's kind of good to get an assessment. Maybe a neighbor said, I saw your mom go for a walk the other day, and I kind of had to help her home. I kind of felt like she didn't know where she was going. I was driving home myself, and I picked her up, so it's good to maybe ask, subtly, if appropriate, if anyone else has seen anything. And unfortunately, we have to resort to the therapeutic lie sometimes. I know there are some very stubborn individuals out there, and they are not going to the doctor. I'm fine. So maybe saying, you know what, I've heard couples say that they turned it on themselves. I have to go to the doctor. Would you mind coming with me? And that could be an example of a therapeutic fib. Because really, the goal is to get that person assistance, and just getting that person into the doctor's office can help. And that's not easy. And again, that's why I always am plugging our care consultations. Getting to a care consultation will help get advice about this too. So we know there's no simple recipe, no simple plan for everyone. So it's okay to kind of strategize and say, how do I get help from my mom? She won't accept it. And that's something that we do. Again, that's our role, and we're here to help. So the second piece of this is driving. And we know very, very often that this is one of the hardest things to do, is to talk to their family member about driving. Someone may have had an accident, somebody may have gotten a ticket, you see some scrapes on the car, maybe notice somebody's not using their traffic signals. And so this segment is about driving and having that conversation. And now we're going to hear from Chris, who's going to talk about having to have that conversation with his father.
There's no exact answer on this is when you stop driving. You can tell when coming up to an intersection, as an example, the ability to understand what's going on around you was starting to deteriorate a little bit. Being on the highway with cars on both sides becomes a little bit more difficult. And first and foremost, the safety of everybody in the car, as well as other drivers on the road. You think about that, and you want to make sure you're not putting anybody in danger. But then the difficult part is telling your dad, who you love, and he loves driving, and he's used to it, that he can no longer do that. But then even then, taking the keys away full time was very difficult. The doctor was very helpful in just saying, medically, you can't do this anymore. But my mother had the hardest time with this because she knew how much this was going to hurt him as well. And this is one of the first things that we had to deal with as a family when it came to telling my dad that he had to stop doing something because of this disease. That meant a lot to him.
We know that's so hard for families. And one of the other, on the flip side, the family has a hard time with this, because then someone's going to have to drive this person wherever they need to go. So it really impacts the whole family. I know people who are the primary driver for the family. And then we would have a support group, and sometimes the person with memory loss would be the driver. We would see them getting out of the car, and the caregiver would be kind of like the person, the passenger, navigating and telling the person where to turn. And the person with Alzheimer's would be driving the car to our support group for people with Alzheimer's. So many times people are still driving when they have Alzheimer's, and maybe they're still safe. You know, in the early stages, that is normal and common, but eventually that person will lose their ability to drive safely. So again, plan ahead before the accident occurs. Just be aware, notice. I know sometimes people look the other way and they say, well, let fate take its course. Well, that's not really a good plan for anybody's safety, especially the others on the road. So really, it's critical to take it seriously and to make a plan. And it all works out. It does seem overwhelming, but families figure it out. They really do. And it is for the best. You want to express your concern about specific changes you've noticed. You could say, I noticed you didn't use your traffic signal back there. That's so unlike you. Is everything okay? You know, there's ways to kind of ease into the conversation without attacking. You know, a lot of communication is how we phrase things. So instead of saying, what are you doing? How could you make that turn like that? You can kind of maybe do it a little bit gentler and see what their reaction is. You want to appeal to the person's sense of responsibility or concern for others. You can say, you know, gee, thank God, you know, nothing bad happened back there. I was really worried for us. And I was really worried for that family that was driving next to us. You know, I saw they had little kids in the car. So you can, you know, really just use your best judgment. And again, that's what we do. We're here to help. And I'm going to play a video now.
Some tips on having the conversation is pointing out, especially for my father, the potential danger to others that it may cause if he's behind the wheel. And, you know, just talking about it from the standpoint that this is not only the best thing for you, but this is also the best thing for others around you. And these are some of the alternatives, making sure that, you know, this is what's going to happen, having a plan. You know, if mom can't take you, then Uncle Thomas or some, you know, will be here to take you, and we will make sure that you're getting out of the house and that you're doing some things. So, you know, presenting the bad news, but then also presenting the plan. And for my father, that's really, really important to have a plan.
And that's exactly it, you know, planning in advance, figuring out who's going to drive this person where they need to go. We've got this, don't worry. On Thursdays, it's going to be, and you know what, maybe it's a great plan because maybe they get to spend time with family members that they normally didn't get to see very often, or a friend that would maybe be going to the same location. So, you know, it takes a lot of strategy, but coming up with an alternate plan can be very helpful. And also knowing that there are locations that do safe driving assessments, and we can connect you with those as well. So having a safe driving assessment kind of puts the burden off the family and puts it, you know, on this organization that is doing that assessment. So, you know, really that can be another helpful tool. And sometimes you do need to bring the doctor into the equation and say, you know, tell the doctor in advance, you know, maybe, you know, my dad has had a couple of fender benders. He's not wearing his seatbelt anymore. We noticed he's a little heavy on his foot when he's driving around town. We're really nervous and concerned about his safety. Can you mention that when he's in for his doctor's appointment next week? So there's, you know, ways to kind of incorporate others. So the burden, again, doesn't always fall on the person who's living with that individual or the immediate family. Okay. And then we're going to hear from Wendy. Do we have a comment?
We do.
Okay.
Karen is asking if you can talk about the difference between memory loss and dementia, and why, for the individual who might be approaching the worrisome gray area of early dementia, it's important to understand the distinction and how to treat the individual.
So someone may have memory loss, but that doesn't, again, necessarily mean they have dementia. They may have dementia-like symptoms. So getting to that doctor and finding out what's really going on is so critical. But with that said, there's a thing called age-related memory loss. So as we age, our whole bodies age. Our hair turns gray, our knees start to hurt, our hips aren't the same. So it's very normal to become more forgetful. It's very natural. So a lot of times we do this program called Know the 10 Signs. I'm sure we've done it with you in the past. And a lot of times I feel like people walk away relieved after hearing that. They say, oh, I walk into the room, I can't remember why I went in there. That's okay. That's normal. That happens more as we get older. It does. And that's a normal thing. So having age-related memory loss is very different than having dementia. You know, losing our keys. We lose our keys, but you know, we put our detective cap on and we can run around and we eventually find those keys. But something with memory loss that's more than memory loss, it's dementia, or like Alzheimer's, they may have put the keys in the refrigerator because they were putting away groceries. They may have put the keys in the flower pot because they were watering the plants. So it's just more than that. And that's why we do encourage people to get a proper diagnosis, or at least go to that primary care physician and get that initial assessment. Because again, there are other things that can cause memory loss that are reversible.
Thank you, Jody. And yes, those 10 early signs, if you go to the Community Chats Montefiore Nyack YouTube website, they are there too. It was another community chat that we did earlier this year, I think, or last year. So you can see the warning signs there. It's a great talk as well. And another question is, what about senior driving classes?
That's interesting. I do not know of a senior driving class. I know there's senior driving assessments, safe driving assessments, where someone will go in with someone who's trained and determine whether that person is deemed a safe driver or not. But that is something I would think a local police precinct would be able to get more information on, or I can look into. I've never actually, well, I mean, I guess through the insurance, there's the safe driver assessment that's 6 hours. I mean, that's like helps, everybody takes that to reduce their car insurance premium, right? So that's, I mean, it's always great from a financial standpoint to take those. And those you can easily get through your insurance company, you know, find out which one would work with your plan to reduce your rates. And in turn, you know, but again, if somebody has memory loss, they could take a safe driving course, but that doesn't mean they're going to recall everything that's learned during that course. So, you know, it doesn't hurt, but I don't know how much it would help, you know. Each individual is different. Yeah. So I'm going to play this video here from Wendy.
Talking to somebody about stopping driving, I think it's most important to understand that that is tied to someone's independence more than most things. And so by saying you can't do this anymore is like telling the person, it's like ripping away their independence, and that doesn't feel good for anybody. I know that I've always tried to put myself in that situation. What would I think if someone was saying this to me? You don't get to do this anymore. And how would I feel? And how would I want somebody to talk to me about this? And so if you try to I think sometimes too many people try to approach it as, you know, very punitive. And I'm doing what's right for you. So why don't you understand, without really turning the tables and putting themselves in that position, understanding, you know, how helpless that feels to take those things away. It's important to be thoughtful about what that experience is like for the individual.
That's a great advice.
Talking to somebody.
Oh, no. Okay. So this is just an overview of what we've already discussed. So I'm going to move again, and this is now we're moving into that third piece of the program, which is the financial piece. And Chris is going to talk about that financial, it's complicated with the finances. So he's going to play this clip right now.
Financially, this disease will increase the cost of living. It's just a fact. So planning for those extra costs is that much more important than what you were planning for before. And so you have to review everything that's in place, see what changes need to be made, both legally and financially, and you have to monitor that going forward afterwards too.
Okay. And we do whole hours on just this one thing that I'm going to talk about for maybe 5 minutes. So it's really great if you're interested in this topic to connect with me. I can let you know we do have a couple coming up, and maybe this is something we'll even do with the hospital going forward. But planning for the future with regard to legal and financial is so critical. Like I said before, planners win. So really getting through that initial hurdle is important. Somebody may feel reluctant, the reluctant, uncomfortable, intrusive, disrespectful. And I think we all can relate to that. I mean, imagine going to somebody who raised you and say, Mom, you know, are you okay financially? Like, do you have a power of attorney? Who did you pick for that? Like, you know, sometimes you feel uncomfortable, you know, maybe there's multiple siblings and you don't know, maybe she already did it with somebody and designated someone else, and you don't want to, you know, hear that news. So it's very complicated, but it helps so much. Helps so much to plan, because you want to do that, especially with memory loss, while the person has capacity. Because as the disease progresses, that individual is not going to be able to express their wishes, and going for guardianship is an extremely expensive process. And if that person's collecting Social Security, those Social Security checks are going into an account, someone's going to need access to that. So starting that conversation is really important. And now we're going to hear from Julie.
Here's what I've come to after all of this. That it's the most loving and kind thing you can do for them is to be honest with them and say, this is like a really scary thing. And I feel a lot of discomfort bringing this up to you. But you know, I tell them, if you're going to be the one who's going to take them on this journey, then you have to tell them, I'm going to be here on this journey with you. And there are things that we have to do to get this in place. We're going to go on this journey together. I've told you I'm going to be here with you till the end. So let's get this ready. It's like we're going to go on an ocean ship. We've got to get things packed up. We've got to figure out what we're taking with us. We got to get ready. And the things that we have to get ready, we have to make sure that we know which doctors you're going to be using. I need to get this signed, okay? So that if you go in there and they have to do surgery, for example, I got to have this durable power of attorney for healthcare for you. I have to have this worked out, okay? Now, if for some reason, okay, you need to go to rehab after something, I have to have these documents here, the financial stuff, so I can get these things taken care of for you while this is going on. I don't want to have anything get in the way of us being able to progress and keep doing this. I said, it seems hard because it's hard in our heads. You know, everybody's read about people who've stolen from elderly people, who've done these horrible things. But if you're the person who's approaching this with loving kindness and compassion, and you're willing to take this person on this journey, you're not doing a bad thing. You're doing the right thing by talking to them about it. And you approach it from the standpoint of, I'm here for you. I'm doing this for you. We're going to do this together. And I'm going to help you through this. And these are the tools that I need to make sure that we can do this.
That's great advice. The way Julia presents it, we're doing this together. And that's a really great way to approach this, you know, and ensuring that person that you're part of their team, and you want to see this all worked out for their best interest. So again, like she said, plan by beginning to explain that you were in this together. Start by asking questions and gathering documents. You might have to pull out some dusty old wills and power of attorney and healthcare proxy. And are these up to date? Are these still even viable. So getting those, that's the first step, is just gathering what's already done. And then, you know, we want to talk about how these plans need to maybe be revisited, and how, as we get older, they're so important, and they're so important without memory loss for all of us. You know, we all know this, but with memory loss, it really increases the importance of it, because again, we can lose capacity to express our interests, and we will lose the ability to sign those documents. So we want to kind of get that done earlier, and not wait for a crisis. Break the conversation into parts. Again, we'd already mentioned a lot of this, where planning it out, who's going to have that conversation. Maybe there's a friend that's an expert in one of these areas, maybe a nurse who could talk about the importance of having a healthcare proxy. So involving others is really great, because you can get, it's not focused on just one person. It's a team approach of all the different people that care about this individual.
And Jody, we have a question. Are there different stages or levels of dementia?
Yes. So at the Alzheimer's Association, we break it down into 3 different stages. So there's the beginning, or the mild stage, which is the person that might still be driving, pretty independent, might still even be working. And we know that each stage can last anywhere from, up to 4 years. The late stage could last even longer sometimes, or middle stage. Each individual is really different. So the stages, it's not quick. It's usually not a quick moving progression, unless that person has that younger onset. So there's the early stage, and then in the middle stage, somebody is still maybe somewhat independent, but needing some assistance with not just their medications and routines, but more with their activities of daily living, like their dressing, bathing, grooming, mildly. And then as that middle stage progresses, it becomes more into that late stage, where they need almost total care, an adult, like and a home health aide, could be maybe in a skilled setting. It could be family members taking care of that loved one. So it varies. Every dynamic is different. But yeah, there are definitely distinct stages, and we can educate on that. And our website is phenomenal. It's alz.org. I'll put that in the chat, but alz.org, and you can learn about all of these things really, really well through that. And as you can see, my PowerPoint just keeps moving me along, I guess because it knows I'm a slow talker. So here's our healthcare team, and you can see all the things that we've talked about today, how it's not something that somebody should take on alone. There's the workplace, community resources, medical team, family, we're all in this together, and we are here to help. Again, this is a lot of what I've mentioned today, but we really want you to go to our website, call us, please call us. No question is a bad question. Connect with our support groups. There's educational programs happening all the time, in person and remotely. So you can find out about that. You can do these trainings online. You can watch the same program again with a computer generated voice. So if you didn't catch something, or well, it's going to be recorded, I guess, so you can watch it again through the Nyack Hospital site. And of course, we always mention all that we do. In the beginning, Sandra, we talked about being a volunteer. We couldn't do all that we do. In fact, if you look back on most of the educational, in fact, we were going to have a volunteer do today, and she had a conflict. Sally was supposed to present today, but if you look back on the presentations offered by the Alzheimer's Association, they're most likely done by retired nurses, a retired teacher, professor, college professor, even a medical director. So we have a lot of great volunteers, and they help us with our walk, which is in October, our longest day, another fundraiser. We have advocates who go to Albany and Washington, D.C. and write letters daily and emails. So there's a lot of great ways to get connected with us. And again, if you're interested, you can reach out to me. You can call the 1-800 number. It's alz.org/volunteer. you know, so there's a lot of ways to connect with us. And again, we don't want anyone to ever feel alone, and to know that, you know, it's really important to start talking about any of these issues if they are relevant to you and your family members. And now I think it's time for any questions that we haven't answered yet.
Yeah, exactly. So we have time for a short answer. Do you offer resources like geriatric consultants, financial planners, or others?
Yes, yes. So we have lists on all of those topics. We have a helpline manager who's, my daughter's just getting home from high school. If you hear the door. So we have lists from our helpline manager who kind of develops, I'm going to stop sharing, who develops lists for each county that we represent. So you can connect with me and I can get you lists on any topic that you're interested in. Any, you know, if you're looking for an elder law attorney or a geriatric care manager or a memory screening clinic or a neurologist, you know, please feel free to reach out.
Excellent. I think this is absolutely helpful, especially for every person out there who might have a family member starting to suffer with dementia, or who already has dementia or Alzheimer's. So thank you so much, Jody. Again, if you just Google Community Chats Montefiore Nyack Hospital, it will bring you to our YouTube channel, and we have more on this topic with Jody's team. I put the link to the 10 signs of Alzheimer's up there. I really recommend that you watch that because I learned so much from it. So now, as you said, you know, when I misplace the keys, I'm like, okay, I'm okay. But when I put the keys in the refrigerator, now I'm concerned. But yes, so much to learn. So thank you so much, Jody. I'm sure you're going to be invited again and again because we never get tired of talking about these topics. So thank you, all of our participants, and I will see you next week.
Thank you. Have a nice day, everyone.